does that mean that maybe you don't have things planted, so closely together? Because both could be an impact. I'm thinking the soil is too damp.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. I'm thinking, what I'm doing is I'm thinking about my seed starting and how I've seen this happen. So one thing I know is mold doesn't usually grow easily if it's cool, right? So I'm imagining that it's warm. So definitely too moist. I agree with that completely. Stunting is a part of stress. So what you want to do is, if you got the heat mat on there and you've got it covered, a lot of times what we do is we put a dome on it, and then there'll be a heat on it and it'll create humidity. I literally, just before I came on here, I checked my pepper seeds. They're about 5 days old. And I took my chopstick that I keep up here, and I cracked the top. I propped it on the bottom and put the tops on so that the air would get in and out, and just kind of let that air recirculate out of there, because I noticed that it was getting not mold, but mildew on the perlite that's on top. So that's one thing.
So we may manage this differently. If you have a heat dome, I'd say take it off once those seeds germinate.
Yeah.
I've not done that, and it's led to some problems. But the idea is creating that kind of greenhouse effect to get those seeds from the place of placing them in the soil to actual germination. Generally speaking, there's some plants that would enjoy the more humid climate that the heat domes present, but I think you're better off removing it. Not that Maddie said that they were using it, but removing it to create, again, that air circulating and to prevent it from being too warm and too damp. In my response, I didn't really address the stunting, so I'm glad that you came back around to that.
Yeah, and so stunting is a measurement of stress. Now, there's also another part of seed starting that you kind of need to understand is when the seed germinates, it'll come up, and then it'll put its first leaves out. And I can't say it to save my life.
Cotyledons. Say
it again.
Cotyledons.
Cotyledons.
I'm either like very, very strong and wrong, or I'm right.
I'm going with you're right. So the cotyledons, strong and wrong. I like it. Strong and wrong. The cotyledons.
Way to stand by me, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, look, arm to arm, baby, all the way. So when the cotyledons come up, the plant kind of seems like it stops. And what it's doing is it's forming its roots. It's getting a little bit of energy from those leaves, those first leaves, and then they're forming their roots, and then they will start to grow. But at the same time, once you start to see those true leaves come up, that's when you should give it a very light dose of fertilizer, and that will kind of push it past that. And also, I mean, on the watering and seeds is a big, we couldn't do an episode on watering seedlings because nobody would listen to it. But if we can drip it into every single episode we talk about,
we'd be better off for it.
Yeah. So when you water them at first, there's nothing to soak up the water at all. Nothing. As the roots grow and they get bigger and bigger, they're going to start using up more water. So at first, I don't water my seedlings for like 2 to 3 weeks almost. And then they start coming. Then I water them, and then to let them dry out, you water them, and you keep that process. You can't. And I was guilty of this for a long time, where I would water on a schedule. Let's say, okay, every Tuesday and Saturday, I'm going to water. Well, what happened was I was drowning my seeds. I was having seeds rot, and I was just waterlogged. If you ever have that issue and they're waterlogged, just let them dry out. Let them use the water up. Turn the fans on and turn the heat on them a little bit, and it'll help get that water out of there. But it's just a stress mechanism. So whatever you're doing to stress it out, you've got to kind of do a Sherlock Holmes and figure out, why is it stress? What is the problem? Sounds to me like it's too much water.
Yeah, the thing with seed starting, it's not baking. It's not the specific science from the point of seed starting all the way until you're getting that plant outside. It's more like cooking, right? So you're going to make a few adjustments to your recipe, add a little bit more of this, a dash more of that, because the area that I'm growing in, where it's 67 degrees and the air is really dry compared to upstairs where I may have my seed tray and it's 70 degrees and the air is still dry, that's going to produce two different experiences for those seedlings.
Yeah.
And so the last couple of years, I've used heat mats more. And just naturally, when you think about it, it's producing heat that's feeding those trays and those seedlings. I'm going to need to water more because it's going to be drier. Now, this is where it's harder to tell. And for those that have experience with indoor house plants, you know what I'm talking about. Like, every plant doesn't need water on the same day. And you kind of have to figure it out as you go along to determine which plants need water when, Of course, you could look up some things about which plants are drier and can, thrive in drier conditions. When we talk about these seedlings, they're almost always in so little bit of soil. Like, no matter what you're starting them in, like what kind of container that you're starting them in, there's always so little soil around those roots. And it takes practice, to be quite frank, to figure out what's enough, what's not too much, and then what's not too little.
Yeah.
They're less forgiving too, if I'm frank.
Do you bake?
I do occasionally.
Let me rephrase that. Are you a good baker? First of all, I ain't never got a pie or cookies or anything
I'm
like that.
not like, Kelly when it comes to, I know she's the baker. I'm not that, So I have my grandmother's pound cake recipe, her sweet potato pie recipe. There are a couple of things I do in the summer. So I have like maybe a bag of 5 things that I feel like I bake and can produce.
I'm going to put this out into the world. I expect a pound cake for my birthday next year. Because that's like one of my favorites. It's a lemon pound cake. Oh my God. And I know all I had to do is like remove the lemon extract, but that's all I can produce for you is a lemon pound cake. That's all I want is a lemon pound. That's my favorite. Damn. Y'all, our relationship just went up a notch. But the reason, because, my wife, she's a baker. That's, she bakes and she can cook but I cook as well. And the reason why I bring it up is because, starting seeds is like baking. It's very
I disagree.
I think it's very precise. And I think growing in the garden is like cooking, where you can kind of be a little bit more free about it and do anything. But, you need to, when you have the seedlings, they need to be watered at the right time. They need to have the correct amount of water. But when you go outside, you get a lot of play.
The reason why I think it's different is because the same seed started on the same day in my seed area versus yours. If it was like baking, we'd follow the exact same recipe.
Yeah, okay.
And the reality is that it's not. The act of starting it, literally the act of how much soil you put in, how much you cover the seed with, like that's the only thing I'll lend to baking. Like that, that could be really precise. But once you get to the point of caring for it, like past day one, I think then we have a lot more play. And I do agree with you. The garden outdoors is much more forgiving because that's the natural place that these things want to grow in. So there is that.
Well, and you've got a lot more soil that they can work with and, water can drain and stuff like that. So it sounded clever when it was in my head, but I don't think it's clever now. I think you're right, Batavia. It's okay.
It happens almost every episode. There's something that, you say, and I'm like, you really want to take that back,
killer.
Right?
Easy.
I joke. Every few episodes.
But I hope, I hope that if your seeds are stunted, that you can, work around that, but understand that there is a growth pattern that occurs. I just went with that with my broccoli, and, I've been starting seeds for a long time. And I've started a lot of broccoli seeds in my day. And I was like, man, they're not growing. They're not growing. I literally blinked and they shot up. It was just, and what's happening underneath is just, it's got to go through the process. So it's important. But I hope that answered your question, Maddie. Do you think we got it under control?
We got ours under control. I'm not sure how much we've helped Maddie. I'm sure you'll let us know, though. I hope you will.
Absolutely. Let us know.
If you crack the code, dude, this is for the entire audience. If you've had some struggle and you cracked that code, whatever it is, I challenge you to post it. Join the Facebook group and post it there. Yeah. Because, those are the answers I'm looking for. It's some of the things that you struggle with. You don't even actively realize you struggle with it. And then someone comes up with a solution. And you're like,
Yeah.
Just that small tweak,
And it's just, a lot of times it's just a little bit of a timing, little bit, and, from anything. But don't forget this, everybody. We have a few things to remember. 1, you need to fertilize your seedlings. 2, you should be harvesting your cabbage when you plant your tomatoes. And 3, this is the most important. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. Remember, we learn to grow, and we grow for change.
Begrudgingly agree to 1. For number 2, absolutely to number 3. See ya.